안녕하십니까. 저는 AWS에서 과기부를 비롯한 공공 부분 담당하고 있는 김재석이라고 합니다. 예, 바쁘신 와중에도 이렇게 AWS 퍼블릭 섹터 데이에 와주시고 특별히 본 세션에 참석해 주셔서 감사드립니다. 최근에는 AI를 빼놓고는 IT 프로젝트를 논할 수가 없을 것 같습니다. 정부도 마찬가지입니다. 아니, 사실은 정부가 가장 과감하고 발빠르게 움직이고 있습니다. 이번 시간에는 대한민국의 신정부에서 AI 추진 전략을 어떻게 진행되고 있는지 살펴보고 AWS는 이런 대한민국 정부의 프로젝트에 어떻게 참여하고 있는지 알아보도록 하겠습니다. 그리고 다른 나라의 자국의 AI 정책들은 어떻게 진행되고 있는지 저희 APJ PS 섹터의 테크 총괄인 아브나비 세티와 함께 알아보도록 하겠습니다. 네, 말씀드렸던 대로 정부의 추진 전략 부분 말씀드리도록 하겠습니다. 저희 AWS가 바라봤었던 대한민국 정부의 국가 AI 추진 전략 부분입니다. 방금 전에도 아마 비슷한 장표를 보셨을 텐데 이 부분은 AI 부분에 대한 부분만 이제 특별히 발췌한 부분으로 AI 3대 강국 도약으로서 모두의 AI 시대를 여는 신정부의 AI 부분에 대한 전략 부분입니다. AI 고속도로 구축, 그리고 세계에서 AI를 가장 잘 쓰는 나라를 구현하고, 그리고 AI를 안심하고 쓸 수 있는, 믿을 수 있는 환경을 구축하는 것이 신정부의 전략입니다. 국정 과제들을 이렇게 쭉 보시게 돼도 굉장히 많은 AI가 나와 있는 부분들을 보실 수 있으실 것 같습니다. 이 기업의 정부에서 추진한 전략들을 기업 부문, 그리고 공공 부문, 그리고 국민들에게 대한 부분, 그리고 기반 조성에 대한 부분 쪽으로 이제 포커싱을 해서 보게 된다면 아마도 그 기업 부분에서는 피지컬 AI로 국가를 1등 만드는 그런 부분, 그리고 공공 부분에서는 행정 서비스를 AI를 적용하는 부분으로 크게 보실 수 있을 것 같습니다. 그리고 국민들을 향해서는 전 국민들의 AI 역량들을 강화하는 부분으로 보실 수 있는데요. 요 굉장히 이제 디테일한 프로젝트들이 있습니다. 요 프로젝트들을 여러분들께서 좀 잘 살펴봐 주시면 좋을 것 같고요. 특히 AX 스프린트 300이라는 키워드를 좀 기억해 주시면 좋을 것 같습니다. AX 스프린트 300은 제조, 바이오, 주택, 물류 등 생활 밀집형 제품들을 300개에 대한 제품들에 대해서 AX 전환을 지원하는 프로젝트로 내년에만 약 1억 원의 예산이 배정되어 있습니다. 그렇기 때문에 AX 스프린트 300이라는 프로젝트로 공공 사업들이 굉장히 많이 나오게 될 가능성이 있기 때문에 이 부분들을 유심히 살펴봐 주시면 좋을 것 같습니다. 올해도 굉장히 AI 프로젝트들이 많았었습니다. AI 연구용 컴퓨팅 지원 프로젝트, AI 컴퓨팅 자원, GPU 임차 사업, 그리고 구매 사업, 그리고 국가 AI 데이터 센터 등 굉장히 사업들이 많았는데요. AWS는 그중에 AI 연구용 컴퓨팅 지원 프로젝트에 참여하고 있습니다. 예, 여기서 보시는 것처럼 AI 연구용 컴퓨팅 지원 프로젝트는 2025년 5월부터 내년도 2월까지 프로젝트가 진행되고요. 혁신, 도전적인 AI 연구 성과를 창출하기 위해서 국가에서 GPU를 제공해주는 프로젝트입니다. 굉장히 많은 산학 연구소들의 인공지능 전문가들이 참여하고 있고요. 그 기업들이 대부분들이 GPU들을 최소 8개 이상씩을 지원받고 있습니다. 과기부가 주무부처로서 펀딩을 했고요. 그다음에 전문기관으로서 IITP가, 그리고 연구기관들을 선정하고 관리하는 부분으로 캐티, 한국전자기술연구원이 참여하고 있으며 저희는 GPU 공급자로서 카이트와 함께 사업을 진행하고 있습니다. 이 연구 과제에 참여하고 있는 기업들은 약 27개 정도로 굉장히 많이 있는데요. 특히 범용 AI 모델을 만들고 있는 연구기관들이 있고요. 의료나 생명과학 부분에 단백질 분석이나 유전체 연구 등에 활용하고 있는 부분들, 그리고 화학 분야나 기상 부분의 특정 도메인의 LLM들을 구축하고 있는 연구기관도 있습니다. 또한 신뢰성이나 편향성을 갖고 있을 LLM들을 개선하기 위한 이런 개선 프로젝트들도 많이 참여하고 있습니다. 이러다 보니 굉장히 많은 AI 연구기관들께서는 다양한 방식으로 GPU를 사용하시고 네트워크에 접속하시고 스토리지를 활용하고 계셨습니다. 어떤 곳은 거의 300TB에 해당하는 데이터들을 넣고 계셨고, 어떤 곳에서는 GPU보다 CPU가 좀 더 필요한 곳도 있었고, 굉장히 다양한 연구기관들이 있었습니다. 하지만 이 연구기관들도 모두 다 AWS에서 아주 원활하게 AWS GPU들을 활용하고 계시고 네트워크와 스토리지 등을 활용하고 계십니다. 이런 연구기관들께서 연구를 할 때 단순히 GPU만 많고 또 GPU만 좋은 제품들이 있다 해서 연구가 잘 되는 것만은 아닙니다. GPU는 LLM 학습의 가장 필수적인 인프라이지만 그 외에도 다른 네트워크, 클러스터 간의 트래픽을 원활하게 조절하고 그리고 빠른 데이터 전송을 가능한 네트워크와 그리고 빠른 메모리 접근 그리고 고성능 네트워크 프로토콜 등이 필요하게 됩니다. 저희는 이 다양한 GPU들 중에 H200 엔비디아의 H200 GPU 등을 본 사업에 제공하고 있습니다. 또한 이 기업들이 연구기관들께서 잘 활용하실 수 있도록 방대한 스토리지들을 필요한 곳에서는 AWS의 S3라고 하는 스토리지, 오브젝트 스토리를 활용하고 계시고요. 그리고 GPU LLM들을 직접 학습하시게 될 때는 굉장히 고속의 스토리지 액세스가 필요하게 됩니다. 그때는 저희가 FSS4 러스터라고 하는 고속 전송 스토리지 기술을 활용해서 활용하실 수 있도록 저희가 연구를 돕고 있습니다. 이렇게 GPU들을 다양한 방식으로 활용하고 계신데, 이런 GPU들을 아까 전에 그 키노트 때나 패널 토익 때도 보셨던 것처럼 업스테이지나 이런 곳들 같은 경우에는 패러렐 클러스터나 아니면 아마존 세이지메이커 AI라는 기술을 저희의 플랫폼을 활용하고 계시고요. 어떤 곳에서는 하이퍼파드라는 기술을 활용하셔가지고 AWS를 활용하고 계시기도 합니다. 이렇게 GPU를 통해서 국가에서 투자를 해줘서 좋은 프로젝트를 만들었는데, 이 프로젝트 연구 목적물들이 달성이 됐다 해서 그걸로 단순히 끝나는 것이 아니고요. 그 모델들이 잘 만들어진 것들이 세계로 잘 나갈 수 있도록 하는 게 정부의 또 가장 큰 숙제가 아닐까 싶습니다. 저희 AWS는 한국 기업들이 만든 AI 모델들을 베드락 마켓플레이스와 세이지메이커 점프 스타트라는 프로그램을 통해서 글로벌 GTM도 고투마켓도 지원하고 있습니다. 그래서 여기 보시게 되면 NC소프트의 라마 바르코 모델과 LG AI 연구소의 엑사원, 그리고 그다음에 아까 전에 보셨던 업스테이지의 솔라, 그리고 조금 전에 보셨던 12랩스의 영상 모델까지도 저희 베드락 통해서 제공이 되고 있습니다. 지금까지 AWS가 정부 프로젝트에서 어떻게 GPU들을 제공하고 어떻게 참여하고 있는지에 대한 부분들을 좀 말씀을 드렸는데요. 여기에서 가장 중요한 부분들은 무엇보다도 가장 최신의 GPU와 그 플러스 네트워크와 스토리지 등이 다양하게 원활하게 접목해서 쓸 수 있는 환경 등이 가장 중요하다는 것입니다. 단순히 GPU만 좋아서도 안 되고 네트워크만 빨라서도 된다는 건 아니라는 거죠. 그래서 다른 나라들에서는 어떤 식으로 AWS와 협업하고 있고 어떤 LLM들을 자국의 LLM들을 만들고 계신지, 이런 정보들에 대해서 저희 AWS의 퍼블릭 섹터 테크 총괄인 아부나비 세티를 모시고 들어보도록 하겠습니다.
안녕하세요. Good morning, everyone. I'm here today to share some stories to help you see how AWS can be your launchpad to innovate more confidently, operating under sovereignty, controls such as residency, access, audit, privacy, and auditability from day one. My name is Abhi Sethi, and at AWS, I have the pleasure of leading our very talented technical teams that support public sector customers and partners across Asia Pacific and Japan. Within Asia Pacific and Japan, or APJ for short, Korea has been a key area of focus for us. So I'm very excited to be speaking to you all today. Our customers tell us that they realize value when they combine production platforms with governance, modern technology, and workforce uplift. Over the last 12 to 18 months, there are 4 macro themes that we are seeing our customers move towards. National LLMs, or national large language models, AI transformation programs across a range of use cases that standardize the way you operate, and investing in talent and expertise at scale. And lastly, but perhaps most importantly, sovereignty by design. Some of you may have heard of that term, or we'll touch on that a little bit later in the session. And that's mainly for trust under geopolitical pressure. With everything that's been happening at the moment, that is top of mind for a lot of our customers. So let's look at them together, one by one, starting with national LLMs. Now, some of you may have heard of this concept. It's been very popular here. You would have heard upstage, up here on the stage this morning. We've mentioned solar LLMs. So to bring the concept back and give you an understanding of what it is a national language large language model, or most commonly known as LLMs. They are country specific. They are models trained on local language, cultural context, and regulatory frameworks. They're usually developed or built by nodal central government agencies, either them or their trusted local entities, to ensure there's data sovereignty, there's cultural alignment, and there's ethical behavior that's been built into the language. Why do that? The reason we're seeing across Asia Pacific and Japan, and we've seen this in Thailand, so ASEAN, Singapore, Japan, here, India, is because citizen services, they need locally tailored, local language nuances built in. There's cultural alignment that in some of these countries, especially in such a diverse APJ landscape, is really important. Policy, how do you conform to policy that's specific to that nation? You will see that generic models, and this is where going back to upstage as well, where the success they've seen is because that's not something that generic models can actually provide for these national models, for this national context. If we look across APJ and what some of the governments are currently doing, we're seeing that policy momentum has moved from strategy and documents and paperwork to bold funded programs. There are priority use cases that have paired national model initiatives with governance and data modernization programs. If you look at Thailand, they have a national AI strategy, 2022 to 2027. It targets a Southeast Asian AI hub. So we heard something similar for here this morning as well. But they target to become a Southeast Asian AI hub by 2027. They are targeting to train 600,000 citizens on AI law and ethics. And there's a 48 billion Thai baht impact. In US dollars is about 1.25 billion USD from that program itself. What it's looking to do is a cloud-first single digital ID platform with a very specific focus on sovereign cloud. Area you're very familiar with. The Seoul city plans to train 10,000 AI professionals annually. Jeff and the team spoke about it this morning, where there's a $70 billion investment overall. But if you look at it in local currency, there's 500 billion won AI fund to accelerate that industry growth. And if I look at those two for a second before I move to the third one, Thailand has had it's called Patuma large language model that they're focused on. Local language, focused on the Thai language, focused on local context, and then of course the Solar LLM and a few other projects that are in flight for Seoul. You look at India, there you go. They started an India AI mission. They received 187 proposals for sovereign foundational models to address local language. Now, for those of you that are familiar with the context there, India isn't just one language. You have a lot of indigenous or vernacular models, vernacular languages. So the model that you build would have to take all of that into context. They have had approvals to come through, very similar funding, about $1 billion worth of program, which builds local contextualization, taking into account all of those 50 plus indigenous or vernacular languages and contextual nuances into building that model. So in summary, a lot of this is actually talking about Asia is actually taking the lead. I feel quite proud to be working with our customers in APJ compared to our counterparts in the US. There's a lot of think big. There's a lot of bold movements that are being made in this industry, which is very exciting. I want to double click on Singapore. So I'm based out of Singapore, travel a lot between Singapore and Australia. So Singapore's super close to what I do, and this is something that my team was quite closely involved in. So AI Singapore, or AISG for short, is a program that was launched by Singapore's National Research Foundation. They've worked with AWS to develop Sea Lion. So it's a nice play on words. It stands for Southeast Asian Languages in One Network. Sea Lion. So I like that play of words, but that's just the nerd in me. It's an LLM that has been trained and tuned for Southeast Asian languages and cultures. It underpins model focus on more commonly used languages. And if you look in Singapore, you've got Malay Bahasa, you've got Indonesian Bahasa, you've got Thai, you've got Vietnamese. So the model takes into account all of those languages. It's actually being worked on to include even more Southeast Asian languages. AWS, the work that we carried out was essentially carrying out the underlying heavy lifting, which these teams are freed from, and instead what they have been able to focus on is faster iterations with reliable and more predictable outcomes. Let's look at what else is transforming beyond national large language models. We're seeing a shift and maturity from initial chatbots, initial experimentation, to agents. You would have heard agents mentioned a few times this morning. Agents, for a quick recap, they reason, plan, and act across multi-step workflows with memory, tools, governance built in. When you think of transformation across the industry, there is a growing need for model choice, data readiness, and cost controls in these workflows and processes. So let's look at that. To give you a sense of what this looks like across public sector agencies, I'll touch on a few of these just to give you an idea. And again, some of these have been touched on earlier, but this is a little bit of a double click on them. Healthcare. We have private as well as public institutions that are reducing clinical workflow cycle times and error rates. If for those of you that are familiar with the industry, that's one of the key operational areas that actually has one of the highest costs. How are they doing that? They're doing patient appointments, summaries. They're doing draft documents that Gen AI is generating for them. They're doing routing approvals. But given the industry, all of that is being done with strict guardrails, and in some cases, human in the loop. And human in the loop, for those of you that haven't heard it before, it's essentially working side by side with an agent and making sure what is being generated is guarded within the realms of policy, regulatory, cultural context, and the rest. In public infrastructure, agents are helping with decision support at the edge. So this is real-time perception, decision support for critical public systems that improve safety. Within education, institutes are using multi-agent setups to streamline student services and optimize administrative supply chains. And yet again, you'll see there's a focus that's gone from initial experimentation to now production workloads, to production use cases. And why these ones? Is because across a lot of these industries and across a lot of the customers that I have spoken to, operational bottlenecking is one of the key areas that they want to start with. Is why you see in education, you see in healthcare, they start with clinical workflows. They look for smart and automation within end-to-end supply chain. Double-clicking on one of them, digital agency. This is in Japan. You can tell from the sakura in the background. So digital agency is the central agency that drives digital transformation in Japan. What they were looking to do is accelerate their modernization journey, but was stalling due to skills and staff shortage. They used an approach that brought together AWS's well-architected framework and automated design reviews for cloud migration and modernization. A quick plug on well-architected reviews and well-architected frameworks. These are best practices, architectural documents, architectural designs that tell you how to design more efficiently, more secure, more robust. Imagine taking that as an input into Bedrock and Claude and actually automating your design reviews. So you've essentially got a solution architect agent working alongside your team. And in the absence of, or not absence, but in shortage of skills and enough capacity, that is very helpful. What they found is doing that cut design time by 70%. Manual reviews were reduced by 50%. And if you think about that efficiency gain, that's quite fundamental in how we operate. We've learned that there are 3 levers to go faster and to de-risk. You would have heard of people, process, technology. I'll tweak that just a little bit. People, programs, platform. Let's start with people and programs. Platforms we'll come back to in the last section. When we talk about people, we know that when it comes to AI, and you would have heard a lot of AI today, you would have heard outside of here prior to today, it's hard to understand in some cases. There are very deep technical concepts that can be quite hard to train people on, which is why we have a history of making education a fun and hands-on experience. So gamifying it to an extent. We recently announced the AWS AI League. With this, anyone can learn, compete, and innovate in the ultimate AI showdown. You get hands-on experience while you solve challenges for prompt engineering and model customization. So you're actually working on real live models and you're actually prompt engineering and customizing them in a gamified competitive environment while you're learning along the way. There isn't a prerequisite for you to have a certain number of certifications to go and do that. So it makes it very easy for a lot of you to get in and actually get involved and upskill your people. Now, if we look at programs, so GenAI Innovation Center is a global program. This is where we pair experts with customers to ideate, evaluate models, and accelerate the path to production with measurable outcomes. We have these set up across APJ. In fact, we have these set up across globally. I'm focusing on APJ, and I encourage you to look into the one that's set up here in Seoul. Think of it as the front door to co-design your first set of use cases. The program works with government agencies and partners that need support selecting and experimenting with generative AI use cases, and customers that need support planning, executing, and deploying Gen AI use cases to drive business value. How it works is AWS will conduct a session to provide some context around Gen AI. They'll discuss the art of the possible. They'll review the offerings that are available, and then they'll learn more about your short and long-term needs. They'll conduct a workshop to discuss your Gen AI use cases, share how others have done it, similar to how I've just done today, talking about digital agency or Thailand or what some of the other countries are doing. And then there will be a proof of concept. The proof of concept actually will showcase the power of and expanse of what technology can do to solve real business challenges. The most important part for me is how it moves to production. So there's a lot of ideation. As someone said, coming up with ideas is cheap. The execution is where you make all the difference. And that's where this comes in. That's where this is really helpful, where AWS will work with you to provide an execution roadmap to facilitate you to develop and deploy your use cases into production, including considerations for how you scale up and how you do responsible use. We've seen this work in a number of customers. So these are just some of the examples where we've seen success. And this is not just public sector. This is not just APJ. This is globally, and this is across industries. We've circled out Samsung Medical Center. Samsung Medical Center, they found success and are one of the notable customers who benefited from this program. They recently showcased how AI-driven operations and clinician workflows reflected a strong momentum for hospital AI in Korea. So it's one of the leading examples that demonstrates how well this industry is evolving. Brings me to our last, but perhaps the most important area of focus. And this is very close to me because sovereignty and governance is something that my team works on a daily basis. We focus on this, and I'm talking about 4 different areas in this. Control for data residency, where your data sits. Access, which is very fine-grained and is based on the role. Guardrails for model customization, how you actually evolving, training, retraining your model, how you actually put guardrails around that. And mathematical assurances like automated reasoning for safety in production. Now, we could spend another hour talking about mathematical assurances. I promise you I'm not going to do that. I will only just mention it here. The amazing thing you have here, and this isn't consistent that we've got across APJ, but here you've got the clear advantage that everything that you need is already available within Korean regions to make all this happen. We bring you state-of-the-art high-performance GPUs for your training and inferencing needs. We firmly believe in giving our customers choice to select what meets their business requirements best. If you look to your right, you'll see Trainium and Inferentia instances, which give you the highest price-performance ratio. While you've got the NVIDIA GPUs with the most recent launch of P6s that allow you to experiment using the most recent industry-standard AI frameworks. The interesting thing here is we've seen some customers, in the interest of sovereignty, go and procure these and build GPU farms. The challenge I find, and I've been a customer myself prior to joining AWS about 4 years ago, is It makes sense at the time to procure the GPUs. They move so quickly. In the time that we were preparing this, we had to add P6 as a new instance type. So the NVIDIA Blackwell instances got added in the last few months. So imagine trying to do that in a GPU farm that you own. Again, that heavy lifting gets taken away from you if you are using that as a service. You're not having to procure new GPUs every time they do come out. And which is why I get very excited that this is something that you've got available within the region. Finally, I want to leave you with this view that shows how we support every step of your AI journey. Up the top, at the application layer, we focused on making AI accessible to everyone by providing ready-to-use capabilities like Hero, Amazon Q, Transform, and Connect. For your development teams building custom AI solutions, Bedrock provides access to a range of foundational models and the tools needed to build production-ready AI agents and applications. And supporting all this is the most secure and stable infrastructure from SageMaker AI for managed infrastructure and a range of chips that we touched on earlier for high-performance computing. So it's where you are on the journey and what makes most sense to start with. Going back to how this can be a launchpad for you. It's from experimenting across the board with the applications to providing you the platform that actually lets you work with agents to then actually giving you the infrastructure which gives you a range of managed options versus GPUs that you can leverage. I hope you found that useful. I hope this will help you find the encouragement in solving your business challenges that are most important to you and your citizens. My team and I will be around for any questions after this. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you all and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. 감사합니다.